So naturally, as the days go on and we get closer to the NBA trade deadline, as well as the January 15th mark where all players around the league will be eligible to be traded, even for those who recently signed in the offseason. But as time goes on, for Bulls fans, we're all just kind of waiting to hear the announcement of when and where Zach Lavine will be traded to. And of course, until that happens, we're just going to continue to hear rumors and speculation of where he might be going. But we did get some updates earlier today, this coming from Sam Amick of The Athletic, who got to hear from Zach's agent and CEO of Clutch Sports, Rich Paul, and there were some interesting developments that came out of this article, most notably that Rich Paul does explicitly say that this is not a trade Zach to the Lakers or bust scenario. They would be open to other teams as well. And he specifically called out the Sacramento Kings and Zach Lavine being willing to take on a role of being De'Aaron Fox's backcourt mate. I actually think Fox and Lavine would be an amazing backcourt duo, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the other thing mentioned by Rich Paul was that there would be an openness to staying with the Chicago Bulls if the Bulls wanted to go in that direction, which, I mean, I can't say that I'm really that surprised, because I'm sure they probably looked around at the market and realized the market for Zach Lavine wasn't as great as they thought it would be, and realized they may need to have a contingency plan in making this work for the Bulls, or at least until they can get Zach healthy and bring his market value back up, considering he hasn't been playing well this season, and it doesn't help that he's out of the lineup and the Bulls are playing better without him. It doesn't bode well for his overall trade value when that happens. But let's talk about what some of these reports mean, the likelihood of some of this coming to fruition, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the meantime in the comments. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. You've been hearing about these guys for a while now if you've been following the channel, but for those that are not familiar with Underdog, let me tell you about the app. My personal favorite that I use on the app, NBA Pick'ems. With Pick'ems, you can pick higher or lower on most players' stats and win money based on the ones you get right. You pick higher or lower and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night if you do 5 Pick'ems and you get them all right. If you think Coby is going to score more than 19 points tonight, which based on how he's been trending is more than likely going to be the case, select higher and you can win some money. And guys, they're offering viewers of this channel an exclusive offer. If you use the code BULLCENTRAL, you'll get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Who doesn't want free money? It's really that easy. It's also a great way to support the channel as well. I'll leave a link to the site and the code in the description if you're interested, and let me know what picks you guys make. Now, I want to start with this rumor surrounding Zach Lavine being interested in going to the Sacramento Kings, and I talked about this before as a potential destination when going over some of the trades I would like to see the Bulls make that would be realistic. And for the Kings, I actually think this is a situation, a destination that would work on both sides. And for the Kings, I actually think this is a situation / destination that would work for both sides. Zach gets to go to a team that is good. For the most part, they're winning now. A young, fast, athletic team, a team that would fit Zach's skill sets nicely, and a team that has a high-level, fast point guard that is great at playing in transition, which we know Zach has done well with a savvy, fast, facilitating point guard. And then for the Bulls, the Kings actually do have the assets that would make a trade work. They have the salary filler necessary if you include Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, and they also have picks to work with, which you would imagine the Bulls would be interested in. Not only that, but for the Kings, a team that had their first successful season in over 15 years, finished third in the West, but came up short in the playoffs against the Warriors. For a Kings team, this is the first time in a while this small market is actually a destination that players may want to go to. Now, maybe they're not going to be as attractive when it comes to being a free agency destination compared to others, but if the Kings are able to acquire a big name via a trade like they did with Sabonis and continue to add star level players as well as build through the draft, this becomes an opportunity for them to break out of this unwanted destination or city that players want to go to. And so by bringing in Zach Lavine, this ensures they get a bigger name, a star level player, and still have him locked up for 4 years under contract. Now, I think the main question as it relates to getting Zach to the Kings is, are the Kings going to want to disrupt their core for Zach Lavine? Because it's not like they can just trade a few picks and get Lavine. Zach is making $40 million. They have to send out around $40 million to make the trade legal, which again would mean Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter at a minimum. 2 key role players, rotational players in their system. Yeah, you might be able to get away with including Chris Duarte, Trey Lyles, Alex Len. They're not going to trade Keegan Murray, Davion Mitchell. And so I think the biggest thing that gives me pause is, are the Kings really going to want to move on from Harrison Barnes and either one of Huerter or Monk, and probably a first-round pick, for Zach Lavine? I obviously would love it for the Bulls. I mean, Monk and Huerter are some of the best shooters in the league. Harrison Barnes is a great veteran with championship-level experience, and even though he might not fit the Bulls' long-term plans, he is a player that you can use to mentor some of the younger guys. And even if he doesn't fit the overall long-term plans, the Bulls are talking about how they want to pursue win-now type players for Zach. You're talking about guys that would be able to come in and start helping to win now. Shooters, which the Bulls need despite their improved shooting. And if the Bulls can get a pick out of it as well, yeah, I would love to do a trade like that with the Kings in a heartbeat. But based on what we know of Zach Lavine's trade value and the market for him, I just don't think that the Kings are going to give up that for him. Now, as far as the Lakers still being considered the preferred destination, I mean, we already know the likely trade package is going to include something along the lines of Rui Hachimura, D'Angelo Russell, and that first round pick in 2029. I'm not a fan of that trade because I don't really see those players making the Bulls that much better. And yeah, the pick is nice, but it's so far out in the future. I would much prefer role guys that fit areas of need for the Bulls, players that are going to accept their roles, and players that actually impact winning, which D'Lo and Hachimura haven't historically been those types of players and their level of impact to winning when they're on the court. Now, as it relates to Zach staying with the Bulls, I think this would be a massive mistake because the damage for the most part has already been done. He's already made it clear he doesn't want to be here by requesting a trade. Like, regardless of what he's said to the media about still committing to this team while he heals his injury, we all know he's checked out and has his foot out the door. And to have him stay with this team, especially after the team has shown up to be much better without him and the emergence of Coby White, by Zach staying, it's essentially a situation in which both parties have accepted they're not going to get what they want in a trade, and they begrudgingly agree to have him stay and try to make it work. And while I'd like to think and be positive about it and say, well, maybe they can work things out, put the beginning of the season behind them, say, hey, we're going to try to make this work. The direction we're going to take is to build around you, Zach. We know that's not going to work. The Bulls have tried to get it to work for nearly 3 seasons now. It's done. Time to move on. Time to be done with the Zach Lavine era. There is no way or direction forward that Zach Lavine can still remain on this team. So much so to the point that I feel like the Bulls, if they need to trade Lavine for pennies on the dollar, accept that they're going to lose this trade and be done with it, then so be it. And I know this is coming off harsh to Lavine, who has been with this team for over 6 seasons now, been with the organization through thick and thin, and I obviously appreciate everything Lavine has done for the Bulls, and it's going to be bittersweet whenever it does end, but there is always a point of no return when you get into these types of situations. And based on where the Bulls are at and their current results, their direction, and Lavine and how he's shown up so far this season, they've reached that point of no return. It's time to move on. Let me know what you guys think. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.